In this slightly longer lecture, we'll be adding materials to all the different objects. Now, of course, this wood won't really work on something like the wooden barrel, for example. One, the direction of the wooden barrel, the planks are going in a different way. And two, the wood grain is going to be smaller and finer, and it won't match up very well to this wood grain. So generally for something like the barrel, I'll just texture it with a solid color rather than having too much variation on it. So let's go across to the barrel now, and we'll just texture that, and I'll show you the different techniques that I'd use for that one. First of all, we'll just add a new material, and the barrel has two textures. So it's got the metal braces going across and the wood itself. So it's a good one to show you how you can texture one object with two textures. So I've added a new material, and let's give this a wood color. So I'll just bring this across here and bring this down. So it's a fairly similar color to this, but slightly different as it would be. And a bit more roughness, I think about there looks good. So we've got our basic wood color, probably a little bit too orangey. And come in and make it a bit more light brown like this, just a different sort of brown, like so. Okay, so we've got our wood color, but what about the brackets? Well, what we have here on the side of our texture or material, in fact, let's change this to wood. In fact, I'll call this wood 1 because we're going to have different versions of wood across the scene. So wood 1, and that's in slot 1. So this texture wood 1 is in slot 1. We can add a new slot here. So there's a new texture slot, and then we can add a new material to this. So new material, and I'll call this metal. Metal 1, in fact. So I'll make this metallic, and we'll give this a grey color. We can't see any effect here, so we can't see the results of what we're doing here. What we need to do is to assign some faces of our shape to this slot, metal 1 here. So if I go into edit mode and choose those faces, the easy way is to go to face mode, select this loop and this loop. So that's Alt left click on one of the edges going across the face loop you want, and then Control plus to grow the selection. And then I can get the other extra bits of those brackets. Now in the slots, when I'm in edit mode, I have these options at the bottom here, and I can assign these faces to this metal. So assign, and you can see they instantly change here. And that looks quite a good metal color, I would say. And our barrel, I think, is working there nicely. Okay, so that's adding material slots to different objects, and we've got variation in our color with different objects. So what I would recommend is going around your objects and texturing yourself to challenge yourself to try these new techniques of different slots on the different objects. If you're confused with any object, then maybe leave that for now and see how I do it when I'm texturing. Okay, so I'll go through and I'll probably speed some of this footage up as it's repetitive, but when I do something different, I'll talk a little bit more about it. So first of all, let's go to the bookcase, for example. I'll just zoom out so I can see it in here as well when I'm selecting, and we'll add a new wood color, so wood 2. And you can use the color picker. So in the base color, you've got a color picker here, and if you like this sort of wood, then you can pick it. But do remember, this is actually affected by the light. So this is slightly lighter than this one here, so it's giving me a different color of wood, which I actually quite like. So we'll leave that one. And that's a nice wood 2 color, so I can select this, and this one, and this one. Last, Control L, link materials. And we've managed to texture all those. I feel like I want the table and chair to have a different wood, so let's click on tabletop, add a new texture, call it wood, what are we up to, 3? And let's texture that with, in fact, again, I'll use the color picker, but I'll pick on this wood this time. And this has got a darker tinge to it. I still quite like it light, but maybe we can have a little bit more saturation and a little bit lighter, so it's a tiny bit more orangey like so. Might work. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of orangey coloured wood. I'm going a little bit lighter, see what that looks like. And the lighter you go, I tend to find you have to go a little bit more in to the centre for wood to work. We could try dark wood on this one, I suppose. Not so sure. I'm trying to look at my reference and think what would stand out, what's on the table and so forth. It's entirely up to you what you choose. No, I'm not going to go for a dark top because I think it might distract from the other objects. So we'll try something around here, so sort of medium light. I can spend hours choosing wood, so you're probably going to get bored if you listen to my nattering about all this stuff. So I'll link the textures there, link materials, wood 3. And then we've got the chair. I'll have the same here as well. Let's select all the objects for the chair. I possibly ought to put these with an empty, in fact. I'll do that while I'm here. So first of all, I'll just link these in. I'll go down to one of the woods. Of course, you can't texture them at the same time, so you can't choose a wood texture with them all selected, but I've selected them all, chosen the texture, or the material, excuse me, for the active object, which is this one, and now I can press Ctrl L, link materials, to link it to all the rest, and we've got it there. But I do want to maybe put these into a collection, so I'll move to a new collection and call this chair, small, and create, and let's just see where that went, because I want that in the furniture collection. Yes, so, oh no, that's the other chair. I'm going to relabel that actually, just quickly, chair empty. Yes, so that's the armchair, I'm going to call that. Otherwise that's a bit confusing. And if I select one of the objects and press the period key in the outliner, I'll be able to find my small chair, which is there. But I want to be able to drag it into the other collection. Just minimizing lots of these to see where I am. So my chair small into the furniture, and there it is, just there. Okay, so let's create an empty. So I'll select this one, Shift A to add, and then empty, and have a quick think about, I think the single arrow is the easiest to select. Oh, I forgot to, of course, Shift S, cursor selected, Shift A to add, empty, single arrow. And I can scale that up a little bit so it's just above my chair and easy to select like that. Oh, I've accidentally put that in the armchair collection. Let's drag that into my chair selection, so small chair there. So make sure that's selected, right click, select objects, and the active object happens to be the empty, so Control P, object, and now I can move this about. I'll probably end up just rotating it slightly so it's kind of pushed up against the table like that. The wood there is looking a little bit dark. I might choose a lighter wood for this one, so I'm going to select one of the objects, and I'll create a new wood, so this is going to be wood 4, and make it nice and light. Probably around there, I think. And then select the small chair objects. Hang on, yep, that's small chair, select objects, and make sure that's the active object, Control L, link materials. And we've got our wooden chair there. And that's great. I think the ladder can have the same material as this one. So let's choose our empty for the ladder. See, this empty is a tiny bit more awkward to select than the other empty, so I think those arrow empties are better. And then we'll press period key to find where that is. Oh, that's interesting. It's in the stool collection. So these aren't actually in a collection. Let's select them, deselect any other objects. It's a little bit awkward. And the base rung there. So yes, it is. Okay. So yeah, of course, I select the empty and then Shift G, select the children. That's better. And now I need to move these to a new collection. Doing that a long way around. So new collection, ladder. And then we can put that, if I press period key, I should be able to find that easily. Yep, there it is. And I can put that into the furniture collection. Okay, so a bit of tidy up there. Now let's go to our furniture collection, find our ladder, right click, select objects, and shift select one of the legs of the chair, Control L, link materials. And now the ladder has the same materials. Maybe the stool has the same material as that. I think that would work. So the stool hasn't got an empty yet, but for now, I'm not sure I'm going to move it around much, so I'm just going to link it up and not worry too much about an empty. Possibly bad practice that. All these objects should really have an empty. So it's quicker to move them around. But well, for the sake of speed, we'll just jump through and keep texturing. Okay, things are starting to look good. When it comes to the chest, they'll need a couple of materials. So a couple of material slots. I can add 2 there and then start adding the texture to the material. So slot 1, I'll add a new material, and this is going to be the gold outline. So I'll call this gold. Change the color to sort of orangey, roughness right down, metal right up. And we've got a nice shiny gold there. That looks good. I tend not to go all the way down with the roughness. It looks a little bit fake, basically. And roughness about 0.1 for shiny metals. Perhaps a little bit more softness there. But we need to put the wood in, so we need slot 2 with some wood. And we can choose one of the woods. Possibly wood 3. Let's just see what that looks like. And obviously we need to go in and start selecting those planks. So these ones, this one, and these ones. And then we can, in slot 2, under the assign, make sure wood is selected and assign. Oh, I don't like that wood at all. That doesn't work with this one. And actually that wood needs a bit more roughness to it, I think. But I think a darker wood is going to be needed here. So let's look at these woods. In fact, I haven't got many dark ones, have I? Let's create one. So new texture. I'll call this wood 5, I think we're on. And I'll label it dark afterwards as well. Then it's clear that it's going to be a dark wood. Let's move that over slightly, bring up the roughness. I might have to bring in my creases a little bit more because they're not showing up very well. What you can do is add a new slot, which is quite an interesting technique, this. I quite like this one. So add a new slot in here. And for the crease areas, so this one around here, these ones, just going to press period key so my camera's centered on this area. I'm not sure, there's some here as well, isn't there? We actually give these ones a darker texture. So slot 3 and assign. So at the moment it's white. We need to give them wood very dark. I'm going to create a wood 5 or 6 now, isn't it? Wood 6 V dark. So it's very dark. And just bring that down. And you can see now that makes the creases stand out because it's much darker. I think that works for the chest. We need to add a bit more detail to it, but we'll experiment as we go. I think I'll texture the smaller chest slightly differently just for a bit of variation. So I'll go in, add 3 slots. For the first one, I'll add, in fact, let's make this a sort of silvery coloured metal. So metal 2. So I want it to be slightly different to this one. Or maybe actually I want the same one. I'm decisive. I'll just create this for now. So it's a dark metal. I'll call it dark. And let's bring down the roughness and see how we get on. Maybe somewhere around there. I could have the same metal as that, but we'll see. And then we need another slot for the wood. So the second slot, let's choose a wood. Maybe the dark wood again. And then I need to choose those faces. So into edit mode, let's select some wood there. I'll zoom in on it so my camera's centered. It's just easy to select the dark spots as well at the moment. So I'll just assign those to slot 2, which is the dark wood. And then slot 3, we want the very dark wood. Just here. And I need to go in and select those different faces and assign them to slot 3. And we've got our chest there. Okay, let's look at the chair. For the reference, I've got some purple and then a wooden outline for the other pieces. So we'll need that purple. I've separated this out for the most part, but some bits like this have a wooden part there and then a material part here. I'll probably add a little bit more detail to some of these areas so the arm looks a bit straight down here, and we'll add some loop cuts in, but we'll do that in a moment. So this bit needs 2 slots. First slot we can have our purple material. So that'll be new, and it's called purple. And I'll call it material because it's actually texture, as in cloth material, not materials. Okay, let's bring that across the purple. That's too bright, so we'll bring that down. Sort of regal purple like this looks quite nice, and quite a high roughness for cloth, I think, somewhere around there. It's not particularly bright, but I think I want it to be slightly muted. I think it's going to be bright from the light coming in, and that looks a bit more like what I'd expect in a wizard's house. Okay, so this bottom section here, let's have that same purple, and the cushion here, and the top part of it anyway will have the same purple. So we'll choose this one last, Control L, link materials. And then the top one, we'll add a new slot. And we want this to be the wood, light wood, we'll see. Into edit mode, and I'll choose this edge loop going around here. Whoop, if I can see that. Don't necessarily need to isolate the shape, but I can press Control plus to add to some of the selection. But now we need to go around the front and select these parts here. Have we got them all? I think there's one more. Nope, I did have it just there. And then assign these to slot 2. That wood needs a little bit more roughness, I would say. And I think we need to choose the dark wood instead. I think that looks a little bit nicer. Might be a little bit too dark, so we might need one that's in between. Perhaps wood 3. Maybe wood 3, that looks alright. Okay, so that's good, and we need slot 2 for these to be that front just here. So face mode, select that one, Control plus to grow the selection, and assign it to slot 2. And in slot 2 we need that, can't remember which one it was now, was it wood 3? Yes it was. Let's double check that, let's double check that. Yeah, wood 3 and my back there. And for the legs, they've got wood 3 as well. I should be able to just link materials, so link materials with these, and it's got 2 slots, but I can just delete the first one. So for this one, delete the purple slot like this, and the back ones, delete the purple slot like this. Possibly a long way of doing it. I could have just added the wood texture to them, but I think that looks okay. Then we just got the telescope over here. Now for the top of the telescope, we've got some gold and some sort of black dark metal. So again, into edit mode. Well, actually, let's add our slots first, 2 slots. And the first slot can be the gold. In fact, I think I chose a brass sort of texture, so I'll create a new one and call it brass. A little bit more coppery than gold. So slightly across the reds, quite dark, and full metallic. Roughness down. I've got this in slot 2 at the moment, so I need to actually start selecting the materials to see it. Let's go to slot 1 and add in a new black metal. Maybe the cauldron metal might work on this actually. Let's choose the cauldron metal. Cauldron, and I think that's going to work actually. That would probably look quite nice. But we'll have the gold for the other parts. So interface mode. That one, that one, that one, and that one. Control plus to grow the selection so it gets the outsides of them as well. There's the back end there, and there's a bit in here as well. And I'll assign these to the brass. So assign. So at the moment it's far too coppery. A little bit more shininess, and let's bring up the brightness. So probably in that sort of region. I would say it's still looking a little bit gold, but maybe a little bit more saturated. About there. Looks quite a nice brassy colour. That looks good. Okay, same for the legs. In fact, we've got the tripod bit that can have some brass. I'll just quickly edit that face there and make sure it's... Oop, I've still got proportional edit on. Interesting. So press O to get rid of the proportional edit. G then Z. Interesting. G then Z. Thought I turned it off then, but I might have turned it back on. And let's give that the brass as well. That's interesting. It looks more coppery down there than it does up here, but I think that works. I suppose it's just where it hits the light. So we'll have to wait till the light sort of is coming through the window to see how that works. Now for the legs, we need to split this up. So 2 slots again. First slot can be a woody material. Let's just choose one of the woods at random. That one there. I don't like that wood for some reason. It looks a bit too reddy. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Still a little bit light. About there. Quite specific when it comes to my woods. Okay, so into edit mode, select that face there. Face loop there. Control plus to grow the selection. Make sure we've got them all. That seems to be working. And we'll give this the brass. So we'll assign it to slot 2. If you assign it to a slot that has no material, it obviously goes white. And then you have to choose your material. I'll choose the brass. And I think that's working relatively well. It's sunk into the floor a little bit, so I could just lift those legs up slightly. I probably do need to attach this to an empty at some point. Yes, let's do that now. So But yes, they are all in a collection. So right click, select objects, that's good. But I need to create my empty first. So let's choose the face loop here. Shift S, excuse me, cursor to selected. Then into object mode, Shift A, and add a single arrow. I do like these single arrows, they seem to work the best. And did I put that in the telescope collection? I did, that's good. So right click, select objects, Control P to parent, making sure that empty is the active object. Just make sure that's all working. So G then Z, move that just above the ground there. That's looking good. Okay, so lots of our objects in the scene are actually textured. For what is a cartwheel at the top here, I need to add a bit more detail before I can texture this. So I need to go into edit mode and just extrude these faces outwards. So it's got a metal rim and a wooden inside. So Alt E, extrude along normals, and bring that out slightly. I could even bring this loop, if I can select that loop up slightly, but I don't need to because it's going to be obvious from the materials. So again, 2 slots for this one. And let's choose this edge loop round here. In fact, let's think about this. Let's assign the materials first. So give this one a wood 1 this time. And then for slot 2, we'll give that a metal, just normal metal, and then we'll assign it. So select the outside edge loop, Control plus, and under here assign metals. And we've got a cartwheel just there. We can add our candles and so forth too. So it's starting to look quite good. There's now lots of details we need to add, but I think the shapes are working relatively well together. You can see that this wood is blending in a little bit with this wood. That's why I went for lighter woods here and here against these darker woods, but this one might need to be a lighter wood. We'll have to wait and see when we start lighting our objects. But you can see the sort of reasons why you start wanting to get the textures in before doing some detailed work, making sure they work with the objects we've got here. We've also got this slight issue where the brass is close to the wood floor here as well. A very slight issue, and we'll see how that affects things. One thing I am noticing on the chest, if I just go to the chest quickly, the wood very dark isn't quite as rough as the rest of the wood, so we need to bring that up to match the other wood as well. It might be a little bit too dark, so I'm going to bring that up so it's a bit more subtle, probably around there. That looks good, and I think we're working relatively well. So as always, if you haven't already, make sure you've caught up with me and that you've saved your work ready for next time.